since time immemorial. If you look at any indigenous tribes, indigenous traditions all over the people, this people coming together in this kind of exploration of the great mystery, being in awe together, has a incredible effect on us. It has profoundly healing impact on our emotional intelligence, on your brain health. I mean, it increases your longevity. You know, you will be around longer to love, I think. So having a healthy sense of conscious, sovereign, responsible individuals coming together with a shared intention is very powerful. It's very, very effective. It has been, you know, that's why people even go to a rock concert. You know,
that group energy.
The group energy, it has a certain power to it. But when we can consciously develop it and culture it, then it can be a very, very big gift in life, definitely.
So many people would say, and I would say that the 12 steps and the ideology, the doctrine of the original 12 steps had its foundation in Christianity, which is neither here nor there. That's where it's coming out of. And so some people come to that work as Christians and they say, well, I have a vision of a higher power and I'm using the image of Jesus Christ as that. Other people have hundreds of different ideas of what that looks like. Can you speak to our human desire to connect with God in a form when we cannot grasp the formless?
You see, the form is the formless. Yes, it is only at the level of dualistic thinking. The form and the formless are opposing. Where life and death are opposing, where singularity and plurality are opposing. You know, what we call in the modern cosmology, this space we find ourselves in, we call it the universe. It's one verse. And yet it is filled with infinite galaxies, and every galaxy is filled with infinite star systems and, you know, solar systems, and within solar system, planet systems, you know, and you have within a planet like Earth, infinite possibilities. So within every expressed reality, you find the finite and the infinite coexisting. Like you and I, we are finite, we have limitations, but we are also infinite in the sense of the complexity of thoughts we can have and the level of what all we can create, what all we can experience. There is a certain level of infinity to it. And of course, that infinity is less infinite than the infinity of the earth, and the infinity of the earth is less infinite than the infinity of the galaxy, and so on and so forth. So there is infinity, but there is a larger infinity and smaller infinity, right? That's the great mystery of infinity. And so we find that these opposing ideas of formless and form, of singularity and plurality, these are arising from reductionist thinking. If you accept God as formless, then God as form is very natural. Yes? For a flower, is it formless or form? Depends at what level you are seeing. At the level of certain frequency match, the flower is form. But you keep dialing in, then you will start to see the molecular structure. And you go deeper, you might see atomic structure. Then you go deeper, you might see subatomic particles pulsating. And you go even deeper, you will see mostly spaciousness. So the flower is simultaneously form and formless. You are simultaneously form and formless. What you call form is just a certain level of observation. So it is natural if you are invoking the presence of God, and then there is nothing that is not God, right? So either from the yogi perspective, you have to take a stance. So if you say there is God, then there can only be God, right? or you say there is no God. If you say there is God, then what is not God, right? So Nirakar, Nirakal, formless, timeless dimension of being. Then that dimension of being pulsates and generates the field of relativity. And then within relative reality, there is Sakar with form. Just like the ocean is one, and yet you go to different beaches, you will find a different qualia of the ocean. You will meet the ocean differently at different beach around the world, even though it's just one ocean. So I think the access to a certain level of personal relationship, to bring the impersonal personal, right? To make the infinite also relatively finite, keeping its infinite nature intact, but to make it relatable, a certain finite boundaries are given. Yes. Why is anybody able to relate to you is because there is a certain finiteness to you. Then that relationship is much more charming. If you are only showing up as boundless, then nobody can relate to you. Yes. So why are we able to love our mother? Because there is a certain finite nature to her infinity. Why are we able to love and appreciate a pet? Because it is the universe showing up as the dog. The dog is a happening of the universe. But there is, within that dog, there is a certain structure is there. So the infinity is relatable. So in yogic tradition, we call that Ishta, whether it is Christ or whatever form, whatever name you give it. Even when the moment you give name, it's form only. Name is also a form. And so what is the Ishta? It is the finer than the finest expression in the relative reality of the absolute, right? So it's the faintest boundaries you can impose upon the infinite. And that helps us gain a certain level of personal relationship to the infinite. Within the yogic tradition, of course, the Ishta is also part of the technology, where every Ishta comes with a specific technology to awaken that potential, that generate that frequency within you, so that you can begin to sense that presence more within you and without you, right? So every Ishta has a technology associated with it. But when we are speaking about the sense of connection, of love, whether it is through Abrahamic understanding, Abrahamic faith, Islam or Judaism or Christianity, they are Middle Eastern religions. All of them originated in the Middle East and then got exported to the West, right? The fundamental understanding is similar, names are different. Or whether it is in Buddhist understanding, but to have a certain level of localization of the infinite, on that helps build a personal relation. That to have some place, why we have built culturally, not just in the contemporary times, but in any civilization you find, you will always find altars there in humanity. There has been no civilization where you will not find certain spiritual symbology. Because we, as beings, we long for that, some place we can bow our head, where we can just surrender, and then we know something is greater. With the intentionality of bringing that awareness in, whether you are walking down the road, looking at the tree, you have the same in the river and the rock, and the butterfly in the sky and the mountain. But some place where you have intimate personal connection, doesn't have to be some organized structure, but your own personal access point, I think is very, very helpful. And of course, it's also helpful within the context of the archetypes. We need archetypes, we need, symbols to shape ourselves around, to aim our life's trajectory in a direction of, right? And what you call idols are not dead idols, but these are living entities which are signposts to orient your life in that direction. Whether you call Buddha and you place a Buddha statue, that's not it's a living entity which is inviting you to tend your life, tend your heart, your mind in the direction of what that being represents. Right? So I think those symbols are invitations to culture our life and tune our life to that particular presence.
This leads right into a small discussion here about community and the power of community. And I love the non-dogmatic expression that you just made, that each of us has the ability and the capability to access a personal relationship with a greater field of intelligence and with what I refer to as the divine or God or divine mother. If each person has the ability to do that and to create a personal relationship, I have a personal relationship with the divine. I can't give it to you. You have a personal relationship with the divine. You can't give it to me. But you can inspire me and you can support me in in building that relationship more strongly and beautifully and intensely, devotionally. It seems that this world is fraught with ways to get off that path. Distraction, billions of forms of ways that we can forget again that spiritual connection. And it's certainly not one of the more celebrated ideas in our society, I feel. So the power of community to support someone in this relationship with a power greater than ourselves. Can you speak to the power and necessity of that and how that works in a tradition where people are encouraged to develop their own relationship with the divine?
Yeah, and there is important thing to realize that when we're speaking of power greater, but it's also you, right? So there is not greater than yourself as in some judgmental entity which sits in isolation. The greater power is your own highest self, and you are her expression, his expression, its expression. So it is you, but also not you within the idea of you. Yes?
Yes.
So when we speak about connection, it is as much realization as connection, because connection sometimes can be understood as separation. So there is never separation. Separation is impossible to have because only infinity exists. So isolated identity is just a hallucination. So connection is realization ultimately of that which always is.
I realize I'm connected.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right. And so the experience then of community, of Sangha, is we are social creatures, human beings. And gatherings which are structured around celebration of love and a celebration of growth and evolution. And within our tradition, we do not create a distinction between culturing the mind and the heart. A lot of time, a challenge for people who might have this idea of God, and they then have difficulty in coming together with the other idea of God, is because there is not culturing of the mind. And so mind and heart have to ultimately get infused, right, in one unified whole. And so when you have a wisdom-loving community, to plug into that, it's immensely powerful to be in a group heart mind field, which is everyone to their best of their abilities leaning in the direction of greater unity. I think it's a very, very powerful tool. Even the Buddha talked about it, the three commitments, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. But within the Sangha, every individual has to be totally, absolutely, fully responsible for themselves. And Swadharma have to engage in their Swadharma. And only then can the Sangha be healthy and be a great solace and can really support and uplift you. But not without each and every one member very intensely aware of their responsibility. And then of course you might have off times or moments of weakness, then you can lean in that also, and it will lift you up. And sometimes you will come and you will be the one lifting others up, and sometimes you will come and you will be the one lifted. And so that becomes a give and take relationship in that community. And this, since time immemorial, if you look at any indigenous tribes, indigenous traditions all over the people, this people coming together in this kind of exploration of the great mystery, being in awe together, has a incredible effect on us. It has profoundly healing impact on our emotional intelligence, on your brain health. I mean, it increases your longevity. You'll be around longer to love, I think. So having a healthy sense of conscious, sovereign, responsible individuals coming together with a shared intention is very powerful. It's very, very effective. It has been, that's why people even go to a rock concert. Or
that group energy.
The group energy, it has a certain power to it. But when we can consciously develop it and culture it, then it can be a very, very big gift in life, definitely.
Thank you. So grateful to have these insights and these ideas, and to be expanding and innovating and just moving forward in this conversation. I wish I could say to you, we're gaining on addiction, and we're simply not. It would appear that there's more addiction today, more struggle today around substance and around addictive behavior than there's ever been before. Also more people on the planet. But we are, in the West at least, in what's called a mental health crisis.
Yes.
And I believe that these ideas in this discussion can move us in an improved direction.
Absolutely. And I think what is important is to celebrate the victories and to focus on that. I think, from the yogic perspective, future is always bright. No localized nervous system knows enough to be worried. So the only way out of time is to build a relationship to the future, which is rational, surrendered optimism. If we do not have that, we cannot progress. In order to do good work, in order to wake up and look forward to the day, you must have rational, surrendered optimism. For a yogi, that's the only way we can look to the future. And as we do the work, we celebrate the victories. Remember, ultimately all reports are also reports on the consciousness state of the reporter, And so we celebrate the victories. There is a lot more people also who are healing.
Overcoming.
Exactly, overcoming, or even a lot more people who are, we are here at Sattva, there is the kind of people who are coming is always changing, and there is more and more people coming, right? Even in the pandemic, when there were people not traveling, there were more and more people joining online courses and sincerely seeking to connect and reach out. Hundreds and thousands of people doing retreats, and we have got about 100 and some people here right now. So there is more people also doing that. It's just that we live in a time where there is more information available, and so if anything happens, there is much more reporting also.
You're aware of it.
Exactly. So ultimately, the Leela is going on. In the relative time, there is no perfect time. Yes, there is always, in the relative field of reality, duality will persist. There will be ups and there will be down, there will be a tear to a laughter, and the show goes on. And we have to just orient our life in the direction of taking in the good, on celebrating the victories, on walking our own dharma, and letting it rest be to the cosmic intelligence, to the great intelligence, to God, to Divine Mother, because ultimately everyone is as much that, right? So we do our best and we leave the rest.
Yes.
Very important, because I see a lot of time people get very pessimistic and burdened by the reporting.
Yes.
These days a lot, you know.
I'm in the field, and I very much appreciate what you just said. And so I'll clean up my language a little bit. And I'll say that I recognize the importance of continuing to innovate in these ideas.
Absolutely.
And that this is incredibly important, more than I can express, as I watch and see the policies, at least in my country, lean towards the treatment of addiction with medication, much more so than, say, meditation.
Yeah.
And I'm that's not my preference, and that's okay. And here we do our work and we put out these ideas and inspire people in this direction.
Yeah, it's everything happens in its time. It's eventually all life will find its fulfillment. You know, all life. And so even the Buddha came, he did his best. So he could say if we met him, he would say, I can report there's a lot more people asleep than they are awake. But if you look at him, his statue is still smiling. So that's the nature of the times that we are in. We have to, of course, see the problem, but then focus on the way only. That is the key. Otherwise, we get drained, and our energy gets drained, we get burdened. Then the goodness of the heart gets heavy. So it's better, we must practice safety first of the heart, take in the good, focus on the way, and realize all problems are only pointing to the way. You know. Thank you.